Okay, so you want to own a Chick-fil-A, the most profitable fast food restaurant in America, per location, by a wide margin. A drive-through so long it wraps the building and spills into the street, and customers so loyal they'll wait 40 minutes for a chicken sandwich and thank the staff for the privilege. And here's the best part, the part that sounds too good to be true. The franchise fee to open one is only $10,000. Read that again. $10,000. To open a McDonald's, you need $1 million or more, and $500,000 in cash. To open a Chick-fil-A, the number on the paperwork is 10,000. It's the cheapest ticket into the most lucrative restaurant brand in the country. That's the plan in your head. And on the surface, it looks like the greatest deal in all of franchising. Pay $10,000, plug into a brand that prints money, and collect the profits from a restaurant that out-earns 3 McDonald's on a single lot that's closed 1 day a week. Here's the problem. The reason the door is so cheap is that you're not actually buying what you think you're buying. In fact, in almost every meaningful sense, you're not buying anything at all. Because that $10,000 does not make you an owner. It makes you an operator. And the difference between those two words is the entire story of this business. And it's a difference that separates Chick-fil-A from nearly every other franchise on earth. The truth is that a Chick-fil-A is not a business you own. It is a business you are selected to run on behalf of the company for a share of the profit under a level of corporate control that would be unthinkable almost anywhere else. And once you understand that, the strange, almost cult-like power of this brand starts to make sense. Let's start with that $10,000 figure, because it's the most misunderstood number in franchising. In a normal franchise, like McDonald's or Subway, you, the franchisee, put up all the capital. You buy or lease the land. You pay to construct the building. You buy the equipment. You fund the inventory. And you own that investment. You've sunk $1 million or more into an asset that is yours. It can be sold. It can be passed to your children. It's a piece of property with your name on it. Chick-fil-A does it the exact opposite way. The company pays for everything. Chick-fil-A finds the site, buys or leases the real estate, builds the restaurant, and equips the entire kitchen, an investment that can run $2 to $5 million per location. All of it belongs to Chick-fil-A. Your $10,000 is not a down payment on any of that. It's essentially a franchise fee for the right to operate one specific restaurant that the company owns from the ground up. So think about what that means. In exchange for $10,000, you get handed the keys to a multi-million-dollar restaurant that you did not pay to build and do not own a single brick of. That sounds incredible. And in some ways, it is. But it also means you have almost no equity, almost no leverage, and almost no exit. And those 3 facts shape everything that follows. Now, here's where the naive model breaks down. You think that with such a cheap entry fee, everyone must be lining up and getting in. The opposite is true. Chick-fil-A is statistically one of the hardest opportunities to be granted in all of American business. The company receives tens of thousands of applications every year for a few hundred openings. The commonly cited figure is that they accept well under 1% of applicants, a selection rate that makes getting a Chick-fil-A harder than getting into the most elite universities in the country. The vetting process can stretch across many months, sometimes more than a year, with multiple rounds of interviews, personality assessments, and deep scrutiny of your character, your work ethic, and your values. They are not evaluating your bank account because you don't need much money. They are evaluating you, and here is the requirement that makes Chick-fil-A truly unlike any other franchise. If you are selected, you are expected to be a full-time, hands-on owner-operator of that single restaurant. You cannot be an absentee investor. You cannot hire a manager to run it while you golf. And critically, in most cases, you are only permitted to operate one location. You are not allowed to build an empire of 20 Chick-fil-A's the way a McDonald's operator might. One person, one restaurant, standing in it every day. This single rule explains an enormous amount about the brand. It's why the service is so consistently good, because the person greeting you at the door has their entire livelihood tied to that one store and cannot dilute their attention across a dozen others. But it also caps your upside in a hard, deliberate way. In most franchises, the path to real wealth is scale, owning many units. Chick-fil-A closes that path on purpose. So let's talk about the money, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting and genuinely lopsided. A Chick-fil-A restaurant is an astonishing revenue machine. The average Chick-fil-A location generates far more in annual sales than the average McDonald's, KFC, or almost any other fast food restaurant in America, and it does this while being closed every single Sunday, which means it out-earns its competitors in 6 days what they earn in 7. Per location, it is routinely the highest-grossing quick-service brand in the country. Now, how does the operator get paid out of that? Here's the structure, and it's the mirror image of McDonald's. Because Chick-fil-A put up all the capital and owns everything, they take a much larger share of the economics. The operator pays Chick-fil-A a significant portion of the restaurant's sales and profit, an arrangement that commonly works out to Chick-fil-A taking a very large slice, often around half of the net profit, or a substantial percentage of revenue, far more than the roughly 4% royalty a McDonald's franchisee pays. So the trade is clear. Chick-fil-A takes on all the capital risk and gives you a turnkey, multi-million-dollar restaurant for $10,000. In return, they take a huge ongoing share of what that restaurant earns forever. You didn't have to be rich to get in, but you also don't get to keep anywhere near as much of the upside as an owner of almost any other business would. And here's the number that actually matters to the person standing in the store. Even after Chick-fil-A takes its large share, a successful Chick-fil-A operator can still earn a very comfortable income, commonly cited in the range of $200,000 to over $300,000 a year for a single high-volume location, and sometimes more. That is an excellent income for running one restaurant. It is genuinely one of the best operator incomes in fast food. But notice what it is and what it isn't. It's a salary-like income for a job you were selected for and must perform in person. It is not equity in a growing asset you can sell. It is not a portfolio of locations throwing off passive cash flow. When you stop operating, you don't sell your Chick-fil-A and walk away with millions the way a McDonald's owner sells their restaurants. You simply stop being the operator, and the restaurant, which Chick-fil-A always owned, stays with Chick-fil-A. You leave with what you saved along the way and nothing more. This is the central inversion of the whole business. In most of the franchises we've looked at, the owner takes the capital risk and keeps the equity, while the brand collects a modest toll. At Chick-fil-A, the brand takes the capital risk and keeps the equity, and the operator collects a very good salary. You've swapped the down payment for a paycheck. You gave up ownership to avoid the $1 million entry, and you gave up the empire to get the golden ticket. Now here's where the psychology and the control become as important as the math, because Chick-fil-A exercises a degree of control over its operators that goes far beyond a normal business relationship. Start with the one restaurant rule we mentioned. It's not just a cap on greed, it's a control mechanism. By keeping each operator tied to a single store, Chick-fil-A ensures total focus and prevents any operator from becoming so large and independent that they gain leverage over the company. No operator ever becomes bigger than their one restaurant. Then there is the values alignment. Chick-fil-A is famous, and to some, controversial, for its Christian ownership and its practice of closing every Sunday, which the founder established so employees could rest and worship. That Sunday closure is a genuine business decision, with real financial weight, giving up roughly 1/7 of the possible operating days, and the brand does it anyway and out-earns competitors regardless. Operators buy into this culture completely, because the selection process filters hard for people who share the company's values. You're not just being hired to run a restaurant. You're being invited into a belief system, and that alignment is a huge part of what makes the operation run the way it does. Then there's the fact that you cannot easily leave and take anything with you, and you cannot pass it down. In a normal franchise, your restaurant is an asset you can sell on the open market or hand to your children. A Chick-fil-A operator agreement generally cannot be sold or inherited that way. When you're done, the opportunity returns to Chick-fil-A, which selects the next operator. This means the single most valuable thing you've spent years building, a thriving restaurant with a loyal community, is not yours to keep or transfer. The moment you stop, it reverts to the company. Think about what all of this does to the operator's incentives. Because you were chosen out of tens of thousands, because the income is excellent, because you can never scale up and can never sell, your entire financial world is that one restaurant and your continued good standing with the company. You are powerfully, structurally motivated to run it exactly the way Chick-fil-A wants, to uphold every standard, to embody every value, because there is no bigger game to play and no asset to cash out. The operator isn't just running a store. They're a carefully selected steward of a brand that holds all the real cards. Before we get to how this can go wrong, it's worth being fair about what the operator gets, because it's substantial. You get to run the single most productive restaurant in fast food without risking $1 of your own capital beyond that $10,000. You get a brand with almost supernatural customer loyalty, so you never have to fight to fill the drive-thru. You get world-class training, supply chain, and operational support. And you get an income that, for running one restaurant, is genuinely excellent. For the right person, someone who wants to run one great restaurant well and doesn't need to own an empire, it may be the single best deal in the entire industry. The catch is simply that you are renting a role, not building an asset. So how does a setup this favorable ever actually hurt the person in it? A few ways, and they matter. The first is that your income, however good, is capped by the model. You cannot open more locations to grow your wealth. You cannot sell to cash out. So while a McDonald's operator with 10 stores can build tens of millions in transferable equity, a Chick-fil-A operator, no matter how brilliant, is largely limited to the income from their one restaurant. Your ceiling is set the day you sign. The second is that you serve at the pleasure of the company. Operator agreements are typically renewed on a relatively short cycle, and the relationship depends on your continued alignment and performance. If the company decides you're not upholding standards, or the relationship sours, you can lose the operation you've poured your life into. And again, you walk away with no sellable asset because you never owned one. The very thing that let you in for $10,000, the fact that Chick-fil-A owns everything, is the thing that means you can be shown the door with nothing but your savings. The third is the personal cost of the model itself. This is a full-time, in-person, all-consuming role. You are not a passive investor collecting checks. You are expected to be in that restaurant, leading it, for years. The income is a reward for genuinely hard hands-on work, not for capital deployed. It's a job with an exceptional salary, not an investment with passive returns. And confusing the two is the mistake that leads people to misunderstand this brand entirely. So let's put it in plain mechanical terms and compare the two paths, because it clarifies everything. Imagine two people, each with a golden opportunity in fast food. The first is granted a McDonald's. To get in, they needed over $1 million, half of it in cash. They own their restaurants, or at least the business operating in them. They can build a portfolio of 10 stores. Each store keeps a thin 10 to 15% margin after the corporation's royalty and rent, but across 10 stores that adds up, and the whole portfolio is an asset they can one day sell for millions or pass to their kids. High entry cost, thin per store margin, but real, transferable, scalable equity. The second is selected for a Chick-fil-A. They needed $10,000 and an exceptional personal profile. They own nothing, not the building, not the equipment, not the business. They can operate exactly one location, but that one location out-earns almost any other fast food restaurant in America, and after Chick-fil-A's large cut, they still take home $200,000–$300,000 or more a year. Tiny entry cost, excellent income, but zero equity, zero scale, and zero exit. Neither is wrong. They are simply opposite bets. McDonald's sells you an expensive, scalable asset with a thin margin. Chick-fil-A sells you a cheap, unscalable, unsellable job with an incredible paycheck. One builds wealth you can hold in your hands and sell. The other pays you beautifully for as long as you're allowed to stand in the store. And this is the thing to understand before you ever fill out the application. The $10,000 franchise fee is not a discount. It is the price of admission to a role, not the purchase price of a business. Everything about Chick-fil-A, the brutal selectivity, the single store limit, the corporate ownership of every asset, the values alignment, the inability to sell or inherit, flows from one fact. You are not the owner. The company is. You are the person they chose to run their restaurant, and they chose you precisely because you'll run it the way they want for a share of a very large number, without ever being able to make it truly your own. So, if you're offered a Chick-fil-A, take it, run it brilliantly, and earn a wonderful living. Just don't confuse the keys in your hand for a deed. The chicken is real, the loyalty is real, the income is real, but the restaurant was never yours. You were selected to serve it. And in the strange, tightly held economics of the most profitable name in fast food, that distinction is the entire business.